Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time around, it is Rant on the 2012 comedy, That's My Boy. Now, before I go any further and share any more thoughts on this film, I would like to give a special shout out to Brock for requesting yet another review. And if there's another film, TV show, or topic that you would like to see me discuss in the future, feel free to donate to my PayPal. The link will be in the video description down below, and I will try to get to it as soon as I possibly can. Now, That's My Boy is one of those comedies from around the time period of Adam Sandler's career where the quality of his films started to take a massive nosedive. And it really coincided with Adam not really caring as much about his films as he once did, as well as his performances. It's painfully evident that he was just going through the motions in this movie. He was slumming it. He wasn't really putting his best effort into the performance. It was a very lazy, uninspired performance overall from Adam Sandler. And that really carried over to the rest of the movie and to a lot of the other performers in the film. And this is not a new thing. I remember when this was first announced, I thought that maybe the fact that it's rated R might lead to Adam having a little bit more juice, a little bit more energy, a little bit more drive. But that wasn't the case at all. He just delivered the same uninspired, lazy, lame performance that he had been doing in other films prior to That's My Boy. So it just made the film an even bigger letdown. And I honestly was a big fan of Adam Sandler, at least Adam Sandler in his prime. And I still am. I really love classic Adam Sandler comedies like Happy Gilmore and Billy Madison and Big Daddy and even stuff like 50 First Dates. I can even have fun with something like Meet the Zohan. This wasn't a whole lot of fun to watch, and it wasn't just due to the uncomfortable subject matter. It was also due to Adam Sandler playing an incredibly unlikable character and just watching him just continue to waste his potential and his talent because he's become complacent. He no longer felt like he had anything to prove. And as a result, he just started starring in movies just to make money and to hang out with his buddies and to go on vacation. That's it. And it's one of those things where when somebody becomes that complacent when it comes to their job, their performance is going to suffer. And that's what happens here. One thing that doesn't suffer, though, I have to be honest, is the direction. The direction by Sean Anders is actually pretty good. I was really surprised by how well directed this movie was. Sean is trying. Sean is trying really hard to make this film work. He's injecting a lot of energy and unique flavor and flair to the film with his direction. I felt that this is a very slick and stylish looking movie, especially for an Adam Sandler comedy from around this time period. And it was really refreshing to see a different director's take on an Adam Sandler film, because Adam at this point was hiring, Dennis Dugan, all these other guys that he had worked with in numerous other movies. It became a bit of a boys' club. So it was nice to see someone from the outside directing an Adam Sandler project. And I think that did ultimately give it a bit of a boost, but not enough of a boost to make it into a good film, let alone a classic comedy. The script is by David Casp, and I don't know how much of this script is actually written by him, because I know a lot of comedy and a lot of Adam Sandler films around this time is improv. So I don't know how much of Caspy's work is actually in the movie. But Caspi is more than likely probably the one that's responsible for this film's incredibly awkward and just really rough plot. The plot of this movie is unbelievable. It's an unbelievable plot, especially for 2012. I mean, I was honestly shocked that this even got past the drawing board, considering how controversial of a plot this film has, even for a comedy. Adam Sandler plays a character named Donnie Berger. And Donnie Berger is a celebrity, or he was a celebrity. He's a has-been now. And he was a celebrity because he banged his hot teacher in high school. And his teacher had a kid. Yeah. That's why he was a celebrity in the 80s, is because he banged his teacher. And his teacher got pregnant, and he was a dad, and I'm like, ooh, like what? Like, it's one of those things where when I first heard about this plot, I thought that this can't be what That's My Boy is about. Like, there's no way. And then I saw the movie, and I was like, wow, yeah, that is what it's about. I mean, young Berger bangs his teacher in like the back of the stage or whatever in the gymnasium, and then it's revealed that they're making out, they're having sex with one another during the school assembly, and instead of it being this really awkward, gross out moment like it would be in pretty much any other scenario, instead it's like this great epic moment for young Donnie, where he's getting cheered by everyone in the school, and they're like, way to go, Donnie, and I'm like, what the hell is this? Like, if you switch the roles around, and for instance, if it was an older male teacher who was banging a younger, female student, this would not go over the same way. And this is just such a really disturbing and just fucked up kind of plot line, even for 2012 and definitely nowadays. And it's not because I'm a total prude. It's just something I don't really think is suitable for a comedy. Like, this is not a comedy thing. This is something you would do for like a drama or something, and talk about like the psychological effect that this type of relationship has on both people involved, but not an Adam Sandler comedy. It's just the wrong tone from the very beginning, and then it doesn't stop either. It double downs on this shit, because there's a reveal later on that showcases that the woman who is set up to marry Donnie's son, Todd, his fiance Jamie, she's banging her brother. And I'm like, you've got incest, you've got underage sex with teachers. Like, what the fuck is this? What are you doing, and what are you thinking? This is not funny. This is just disgusting and wrong and all kinds of fucked up. And there's other stuff too that's equally as fucked up, like this whole running gag with Donnie having the hots for Helen, Jamie and Chad. No, not Helen. I'm trying to remember who it is. Oh, Grandma Dolores, Steve's mom. So he has the hots for this old grandmother And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but what is a bad thing is this running gag of him jizzing on old photos of her. Like, that's just gross. And there's just a lot of gross gags in this that are not funny. Vanilla Ice falling on his ass and peeing in the air and saying that he's a fountain. And there's just a lot of that stuff. And then there's a lot of other stuff that's really fucked up in a different way, in a racist way. Like, there's a running gag with these housekeeping people who were Asian, I think. And there's all this Asian racist stereotypical bullshit that's in the script. Like I said, this is the kind of stuff you're like, how the fuck did this get past anybody in 2012? And I'm not saying that is something that I can't handle. I can handle it. It's just, in this kind of movie, it's just not something that really does it any favors. It just makes it into a very awkward, unfunny, painful story and overall film to sit through. And what's frustrating too is that this script, despite all of this, it does have a good heart to it. I have to be honest. The whole stuff with Donnie and his estranged son Todd, and how they wind up reconnecting with one another, that's actually something that I think works in this film's favor. But it's just buried amongst all these gross out gags and all of this other bullshit that is never really able to shine through. Also, it doesn't help either that a lot of this script is just lazy cliches that are just about as lazy and tired as Adam Sandler's performance in this movie. And it's just one of those movies where it's a comedy, but you rarely ever laugh. There's rarely a line of dialogue that makes you chuckle, let alone smirk. There's a lot of stuff that makes you cringe, but not necessarily in a funny way, but in an awkward, really screwed up kind of way. And there are some moments here and there where it kind of cracked me up. Like, there was a clear bit of improv where there's a scene that takes place at a strip club, and Nick Swartzen is there. He plays one of his outrageous characters. And there's this cow who's stripping with like a neck brace on, and Nick Swartzen just calls her RoboCop. Like, as a fan of RoboCop, that took me off guard, and that did kind of crack me up a little bit. There's a gag with Andy Samberg's character, Han Solo, because that's the name that Donnie gave him. He has a tattoo of the New Kids on the Block, but it's all warped because he got it when he was a kid and when he was overweight. So he lost all this weight and he grew up, and now their heads are all warped and fucked up. That did kind of crack me up there. And there were a couple other moments, like you had Milo Ventimiglia. He plays the younger brother. He plays Chad. The guy, he plays the brother that essentially is banging his sister Jamie. And he has this whole running sort of gag where, well, it's not really a running gag, but you find out that he's not actually a military guy. That's all a lie. And he's really just some guy who is going to dance classes and stuff. And so there's a moment where he gets knocked out by either Adam Sandler or Andy Samberg at the end, and he like gives jazz hands before he passes out. Well, I thought that was kind of funny because of just the physical comedy from the actor, but the jokes are really few and far between, that's for sure. And it really is hard to sympathize with and like Donnie Berger as a character. He comes across as a total jackass who's wasted all his money and is a total loser. And even when he ultimately prevents his son from getting stuck in a doomed relationship, it's still one of those things where he goes about it in a rather douchebag kind of way. So it's the kind of thing where even though he learns his lesson, kind of, he doesn't really change that much. So it's one of those kind of movies where he is humbled, but not to the point where he changes a lot as a person. So it just feels like you went just a little bit forward. Like it's one of those things where it's not an entire shift forward. It's just like you just barely just press the shift into gear when it comes to his development as a character. And there's a lot of these other subplots that just don't do anything for me. I don't really care about Todd, Andy Samberg's character, and his whole romance with Jamie. I don't really think that Adam Sandler and Vanilla Ice make a good pair. In fact, they have no chemistry at all. They're like fire and ice. They don't go together. There's this other bit with this priest who's violent and just likes to hit people because at one point he was a criminal or whatever, and I don't know what they're trying to do with that. That leads to them trying to hire a replacement, and they go with the ethnic route, which is once again really racist. And I see what they're trying to do. Like, you have this racist stuff, and then they try to have these lines of dialogue that try to make up for it by saying how racist it is, but that doesn't make it any less racist and stereotypical. It really doesn't. It's just one of those movies where there's really not a lot to really give a shit about. You don't care about the stuff with Todd and his fiance. The only stuff that you kind of care about a little is the reconnection between Donnie and his son, but even that's kind of hampered by the whole stuff with Mary, Donnie's middle school teacher that he banged when he was underage and had a kid with, because they still have this really uncomfortable, weird thing where he still shows affection for her and still thinks that she's a wonderful person, and they had a connection that was very special. It's the kind of thing where you're like, this is just gross to have a kid who was involved in an underage relationship sexually with his teacher and trying to paint it as if it was a good thing somehow. Like, this is the kind of stuff that is just damaging in so many different ways. Even if it's a comedy, it's still a horrible message to throw out there. And it's very off-putting. This whole, oh, yeah, good for you, Donnie. I had this teacher back in high school that I thought was, or elementary school, which I thought was hot too, and I wish I had the chance to bang her. You go, man. Awesome. You lived the dream. And I'm like, that's just seedy and just ew. It really is to me. It's just gross. And it's very hard for the film to get past that, because that's such a major plot point of the movie. And the performances by the cast, they're not as awkward or as bad as the story and the film's attempts at humor most of the time, but they're still not really that great. I mean, Adam Sandler is once again awful, just phoning it in to the 10th degree here, complete with an annoying Boston accent that sounded fake as hell. Andy Samberg, He plays his son, Todd. I'm not really a big Andy Samberg fan. I never really thought he was that brilliant in SNL. I didn't like Hot Rod, but I really was surprised by Popstar. I thought he was hilarious in that, and I thought that film was laugh out loud funny, and it was really clever. Here, he just feels wasted. Like, he doesn't really have a lot of moments to showcase his own signature style of humor, and he just spends a lot of the time playing this straight guy, this straight man to Adam Sandler's over-the-top, boorish, drunken dad, and that gets old really quickly. Leighton Meester plays Todd's fiance. She's nice to look at, but there's not much to this character. She really comes across like every other bitchy fiance you've seen in a million other movies. Vanilla Ice, once again, is a bad actor. That has not changed. He was bad in Cool as Ice, and he was bad in this. James Caan is in this for some reason as Father McNally, the priest who was once a bar hopper and was a former criminal, and he's supposed to be reformed, but then he gets into a fight with Andy Samberg, and his character is just an Irish caricature and an asshole. So I felt like that was a waste too. Milo Ventimiglia as Chad. I would say he was probably the other character in the film that I thought was delivering, I would say, probably the funniest performance, at least for me personally. Blake Clark and Megan Faye, they play Jamie and Chad's father and mother. Tony Orlando is in this as Todd's boss. You have Peggy Stewart, who plays Grandma Dolores, Steve's mother, and there's just a lot of shots of her trying to be sexy, which is also not funny and just gross. I'm sorry, it made me think I was watching X again. To be perfectly honest, I'm like, that whole scene where she comes on to Donnie and late at night and they have sex. Like, I'm like, am I watching X again? You also have Susan Sarandon, who plays the present day Mary, his teacher, after all these years locked away in jail. Todd Bridges plays himself in a cameo, and you've got a lot of sports figures, because I think Adam Sandler was like friends with people who worked at like ESPN or people in the sports world. So you got weird cameos from like Rex Ryan, who used to coach the New York Jets, and him being a Patriots fan, which is an in-joke that only works if you were familiar with the fact that he was the Jets head coach and hated the Patriots. You know, like Dan Patrick as this talk show host named Randall Morgan. And yeah, Baron Davis, who plays a gym coach. He was a basketball player in the NBA. So yeah, this just weird cameos from sports figures. You also have Ciara. She's in this as a bartender and Todd's secondary love interest, who's introduced like way late into the game. You also have like Will Forte and Rachel Dratch and Anna Gasteyer from SNL. They're also in the movie. Lunel, who you've probably seen in other stuff. She plays one of the strippers. Like, the cast, it's not horrendous or terrible, but there really isn't a lot of bright spots here either. And then when it comes to the other technical merits, I mean, what can you really say about a movie like this? It's not like the cinematography is anything that's spectacular or special. The editing by Tom Costain, it's not a stain on your eyes, but it's just serviceable. The music by Rupert Gregson Williams, I don't remember a single note from the score, except that it sounded very schmaltzy when it was trying to be more heartfelt and emotional. And the songs and the soundtrack were decent. I don't remember exactly the song selection. I remember some of the songs being nice to listen to, and it was fun to hear them again. But with that kind of stuff, I could just listen to that on my own. I don't have to listen to it as a part of this movie, which has this whole plot line about some slacker former celebrity who was only a celebrity in the 80s because he banged his teacher and she got pregnant, and now he needs money because he didn't pay taxes, so he needs to raise all this money, otherwise he's going to go to jail. So he tries to reconnect with his son because he finds out that his son is going to be married to this rich chick, and he's been a part of this business opportunity, or he looks like he might be next in line for a big promotion, so he's got the money. And also it's one of those things where if he can convince him to go to the prison to visit his mom, then the talk show host guy will give him the money that he needs. Of course, that leads to the typical third act where his son finds out that he was lying to him, and they get mad and they separate, and then you have the ending where they reconcile again and make everything work, and Donnie's supposed to learn his lesson, but he doesn't really learn his lesson at all because he still winds up making the money back because of some unlikely bet at the Boston Marathon. He bet on this fat guy, and the fat guy won, so now he's rich, and now he can pay off his debts, and now he's in better shape than he was at the start of the film. It's like one of those things that's like, yeah, it all worked out, but I don't really feel happy about it because Donnie's such a shitty character and a shitty person. I'm like, I don't really feel that great that he's now got all this extra money now to blow and to just waste. He really should have just gone to prison and served his time. That would have been a lot better for him and for his family. But that's just me personally, because he didn't learn shit when it comes to any kind of lessons. And the lesson that I learned, though, from watching this movie is that Adam Sandler, at this point in his career, was stuck in such a serious rut when it comes to these comedies that nothing could bring him out of it. Not even a new director in the director's chair, not even a different writer, because this is not a writer that I think worked with Adam Sandler a lot. Not even a new fresh face in Andy Samberg. None of that could bring him out of the rut that he was in, or an R rating. None of that. And what eventually brought him out of the rut that he was in was doing films that had nothing to do with comedy. Uncut Gems, Hustle, like those films that he's been doing as of late. Those are the films that brought him out of the rut that he was in. And I hope he continues to go on that trajectory because he's a talented actor. He's more than just a funny guy. Like, he can really pull off dramatic stuff. And at this point, this shit had become stale. This shtick had really run its course, and he would continue trying to beat this dead horse over and over again, even after this film's release. But it is really one of those things where his career finally got out of the dumps when he took a risk and stopped being complacent, which I'm glad that finally happened for Adam. I was worried that he wouldn't really get out of it. He would just keep making these lame, shitty, unfunny, lazy comedies until he decided to retire. But no, he decided to branch out and take a risk, and it's paid off. Good for him. When it comes to this movie, though, whatever risks it takes are risks that are just too much. On one hand, I kind of admire the fact that it had the balls to go where it did, but on the other hand, it just completely debilitated the entire movie. Because when you go that far, you really have to nail other aspects of the film. You really have to nail the character depth. You really have to nail the comedy. You really have to nail all these other aspects of the movie. Otherwise, those huge risks become the spotlight in the movie, and they become increasingly difficult to escape from. And I don't ever feel that this movie managed to get out of that kind of awkward, just messed up spotlight that this film's plot put it in. But that's just my thoughts on That's My Boy. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you later. See ya.